Morning, everybody. If I could, I'll call this county board meeting to order, Wednesday, March 22nd, a little after 9. As a courtesy, those that have cell phones, please make sure they are on mute, vibrate, whatever. If you haven't pushed your attend button, please do so. I see we have one member that's not here yet, and I haven't heard from him, so maybe he'll show up. Otherwise, if we could all rise for a moment of silent meditation, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance. As normal, please keep in mind our troops serving here and abroad, also their families, and also our men and women in our protective services. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, here's Mr. Swatala. Morning, Bill. Okay, we have everybody. Let's move on to item 3. Approval of the February County Board minutes. A motion to approve. Motion by John Zluzik, seconded by Randy Young. Comments or questions, please, on last month's regular board minutes? Anybody? I see none, so let's do this then by acclamation. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item 4 on our agenda, public comment. Anybody in the back from the public wishing to comment at this time, please raise your hand. I see none, so let's move forward. Item 5 on our agenda, motion to deviate. Could I have a motion to deviate, please? Motion by Kathy Lipke, seconded by Bob Krause. Once again, by acclamation, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Chairman's report. First couple things you had in your packet. You had a survey. Those members that did fill out their survey, Pam was collecting them, I believe, up here in the front. Otherwise, please do so and hand them in. Also, in your packet was Older Americans Month, which is next month in May. If you know anybody, please nominate them. These are Shawano County's living treasures that we do annually in May, so just wanted to let you know that also. Let's see. Then, a little history. April 2nd will be the 100th anniversary of President Woodrow Wilson going to Congress and asking for a declaration of war in Germany. It was actually the start of World War I. That will take place, that 100th anniversary will be April 2nd. So the troops that were actually sent over were first called the 1st Expeditionary Division. Later on, they were called the Fighting First. Today, they are known as the Big Red One. And I'm happy to say I know the Adjutant General at Fort Riley, who is in charge of the Big Red One Division at Fort Riley. Good group. But then again, all military services are good groups. So, that war then ended November 11th, 1918, which is called Armistice Day, which is why on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, we celebrate Veterans Day, but we also turn and face the east, because that's when that was signed. One of the more popular veterans of that war was a Tennessee native by the name of Sergeant York. I'm sure some of you have heard of Sergeant York. Most of us that have been in the military certainly admired his courage. At one time, he was accredited for single-handedly destroying 35 machine gun positions. He was a sharpshooter from Tennessee, so he neutralized a lot of individuals, but he was left with just his revolver, and he fired until that was empty, and thank goodness the rest of the Germans surrendered. An officer that was right in front of him laid down his guns, and Sergeant York had 17 individuals in his group. 16 of them made it, but they captured 123 Germans that surrendered in that battle that day. So he was one of the highest decorated American soldiers of all times, certainly of World War I. I know my grandpa was in World War I, and if it wouldn't have been for a shovel on his back, he would have sustained a round to his back, so he was kind of lucky that he had a shovel on his back. So, but anyway, just a little history. I'm kind of a history buff when it comes to war, and I know most veterans are, because we appreciate what the veterans have gone through. So, with that then, some of us attended the WCA meeting held at Kashina this last week, and the three that were there with me, if they would care to speak anything, and I'm going to start with Milt Marquardt. Milt, please.
I was there, and most of the stuff that I talked about was already in the media. The increased funding for K-12 education, the additional funding for the UW system, elimination of the prevailing wage, the elimination of the state forest tax, and the big thing is the transition to self-insurance for the state employees. That's the big thing that the governor's going to use to offset the budget. One thing I found after looking through here was what the governor wants to do is give the inmates in the state prison system within 6 months of their release date to move them to county jails to work under their work release program. I don't know what effect that's going to have on the county. I mean, if they're spending the last 6 months in a county jail, it's going to be at county expense. So that's one of the things. And the other thing is the pay for progression in the DA's office for, they want to do a wage classification instead of just not giving them a raise every year so they can retain the assistant district attorneys.
Right, they were talking about there's a big shortage in the district attorney's offices nowadays, because they can obviously go into private practice and make a lot more money.
And there was a lot of increased funding for highway maintenance and improvements. And there's a lot of changes in health and human services, but I think Bonnie could speak to that better than I can.
Okay. No?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Bonnie Olson, you're up.
Well, I guess I did mention that earlier when I went down to the Ambassador program in Madison, where they want to have extra funding for children because of the drug epidemic that's happening. They have a lot more people that are using that, and also using funds to especially for the drug epidemic, instead of incarcerating them, but using it for rehabilitation also.
True. Better, Bonnie? Yep. Okay, thank you. Rosetta, please, comment.
Okay, I thought it was a good meeting, but we could have got a lot more detail on some of the items that they mentioned. A few of the proposals that could affect our budget process, some are minor, but all affect the next budget. State statutes are proposed to be amended to allow counties the ability to establish size and structure of numerous committees and boards. Funding for the elderly and disabled residents' transportation would be increased. An increase in funding available to counties for more training for our local law enforcement was proposed. Allowable levy limits would not change, although there would be some modification to the wording. Increased grants would be available for cost sharing for land and water conservation activities and also water resource management plans. Health and Human Services and Social Services have numerous funding changes in over 10 programs. However, associated statutory changes for eligibility are also suggested and could be a factor. A sales tax holiday for specified purchases for school supplies, 2 days in August 2017 and 2 in August 2018. $11 million would be the estimate not taken in that day, so that means a little less revenue for our budget. Shared revenues are proposed to maintain the same current funding allocation as past years. One major expense, the transportation fund, the state transferred $24 million from the Petroleum Inspection Fund to the General Transportation Fund to help out there, but not enough to alleviate the tax figures. This is just a partial listing and will be considered when the new budget is approved by the 1st of July.
There was a...
Yeah, I cut it short.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, I think some of the takeaways they had at that meeting was obviously they were going to fund more for highways and roads, which is always good to hear because obviously we need infrastructure and it's been hurting and it's not our fault, but it's just a situation the way it is. Petroleum costs have gone up, it costs more to resurface roads, and money's getting short. That was one of the things they did really emphasize. Another thing was expanded money for education, extension services. One of the things Rosetta touched on, and Bonnie, was the fact that children in protective services, we seem to be getting more and more involved in that area because there's more and more cases coming up. And to that fact, when you have to protect unborn children, where is this coming, where is this going to? It's only going to get worse the way it seems. And a lot of this is due to the drugs and the family lifestyle, but it's not going to get easier, but we'll keep working on whatever we have to do, and hopefully we'll do it right. So with that, then, I will stop what I'm going to talk about further, and let's move on to item 7 because we have a presentation in front of us. So with that, item 7 is on our agenda. We have, this month we have Carrie and Nick to give us a short presentation on our plan for health group. If you would, please, Carrie.
Good morning, everybody. So my name is Nick Ma. I'm the community health educator for the Shawano Menominee County's Health Department. I have here with me Carrie Hoffensberger with the Planning Department, and as you can see, Nancy Schultz was not able to make it, but we also have her on this presentation because we represent the 3 different departments that came together to apply for this grant and carried out the work of the grant for the last year. So the FRESH project, our mission is building the foundation for healthier, accessible, and sustainable food systems by increasing food security, educating, and engaging the community. And I think that's a really good summary of why all 3 of these departments came together, because it's a health concern that we can narrow down to specific geographic locations in our community. I have the clicker here. So a little bit about who we are. The FRESH project was created when we received a grant from the American Planning Association, the APA, through its Plan for Health grant program, and that was in November 2015. And we did this to improve access to local fresh food by convening a team of planning and public health professionals to identify barriers to healthy diets. So this project started as a coalition of Native nations, county government departments, community organizations, farmers, the religious community, and committed individuals working in Shawano County. And then once the grant period ended this past February, the coalition transitioned into what we call now a food council. So this is a group that was initially formed through the grant but continues to fight food insecurity in our county. The core team brought together national speakers in to learn more about policy, system, and environmental changes in regards to food access and insecurity, as well as on how to create a food council and a system that is secure, sustainable, and healthy for everybody. The National Office for the Grants, the Plan for Health Grant, provided us with two excellent staff members that gave us a great deal of support. I believe Dan Robinson presented to you back in September along with Carrie. So he is missed in our group, but his work carries on in what we're doing today. So a little bit of a quick summary of what we accomplished in our grant period. We built a coalition of over 24 people representing Native nations, county government, community groups, churches, farmers, and other interested individuals. We conducted a survey of more than 750 households and held 6 different focus group listening sessions in Shawano County to better understand the challenges of having access to good food. And lastly, we created a series of recommendations that will make a positive impact on food security for all in our area's residents, and Carrie will touch on that in a little bit later. So to summarize the survey takeaways, this ended in August, I believe, or September of 2016, and since then we've been compiling the data and making it legible for the rest of the community. So some quick summaries. We originally had a goal of 350 surveys, and we got back over 750 surveys, 750 households in Shawano County. So it blew our expectations out of the water, and we were extremely grateful for the community support. And overall, about 1/3 of the respondents said that it was sometimes or often true that they didn't have enough food in their homes and that they didn't have enough money to get more. A third of those respondents also said that they couldn't afford to eat nutritious foods, but that they wanted to. And around 9 out of 10 households said that food quality and the healthiness of the food was very or extremely important to them. And then relatively few people put an emphasis on organic or locally produced food, price, and one-stop shopping was more important. So I think that invites a lot of education to our community to express the importance of buying locally and supporting our local producers and growers, and how it can benefit them as well. In addition to the survey, we conducted 6 different focus group sessions around the county, whether they were in food pantries or Head Start programs with the 2 different tribes that we were working with, and also community dinners at local churches. We did this to kind of get some anecdotal data and aside to the survey to really better understand what some of our target population was going through. When asked about the quality of food at one pantry, one gentleman said that sometimes the food is basically inedible, but he can't afford to be picky and he's lucky to eat 2 meals a day. And another woman said that at the end of a focus group that I actually was facilitating, that she wouldn't make it without the local church pantry that she attends. Most people in the focus groups reported that they do not eat healthy, but they wish that there were more fresh food options available and closer to their location, and more specifically in the western and northwestern region of the county where those resources are kind of lacking. And especially so, because they have to drive into the city to get the foods that they need. The biggest challenges in healthy food access was reported as higher costs and having to travel a long distance to the stores that are either in Wausau or in Shawano to get the biggest options that they have. So overall lessons that we learned about this coalition and the grant period was, number 1, start right and equally. Really mapping out who you want to bring at the table even before you apply for the grant is something that we learned. We initially just applied for the grant with the 3 different departments that we mentioned earlier, but moving forward, if we would recommend this type of process to anybody else, is get all those partners involved in even writing the grant itself so that they feel that they're not left out. As Dan Robinson mentioned a lot, work at the speed of trust. You can only be as effective and work as quickly as as your group allows, and the trust is the most important thing that you have to establish first, and being conscientious of different racial and ethnic groups and different traditions and customs that are all brought to the table. Be willing to cross borders and to think differently. We were really happy with the way our group moved around during our meetings. We met bi-monthly, and we would go to different tribal buildings. We'd go to the county buildings or different churches. So we're really meeting the people where they're at and making, playing no favorites with where we would meet. Take time to build the coalition. Nothing's going to happen unless you're all working and have the same ideas on the table, and and also with the calendar-wise, you have to meet your deadlines, so make sure that you're willing to build that coalition up first. Be humble and kind of put your pride aside and be willing to listen to others and different viewpoints. And then again, just take advantage of the moment of the community's interest. And I think we saw the community's interest with the amount of surveys that we got back. And now I will hand it over to Carrie.
So as Nick mentioned, the grant ended in February, and so now we're, sort of looking at how do we keep the Fresh project moving forward beyond the grant. So at that point, what was considered our core team, which was all the folks that Nick had mentioned that we had, pulled together that worked on this project, has transitioned into what we're calling a food council. So at that time, we looked again at our mission and made some changes to make sure that this mission really set, the goals, the idea, the tone of the group moving forward. We also made some adjustments to the vision and making sure that, this was another thing that was really driving us. Like, we wanted to look at food systems as a whole. So that was really important to make sure, one of the things that we talked about too, we found in our communities, it's not a food system, there's different food systems within, the different communities for the different groups that are working on this project. Then we established a list of goals and what we consider 3 pillars, which is food access, education, and community engagement. These are the things that are sort of driving the Fresh project moving forward, the things that we really want to look at, we really want to address. That involves increasing physical access to food and fresh food availability. We also want to look at developing a buy local campaign and educating growers and consumers about food recovery and reducing food waste and increasing fresh food availability. Looking at sort of a systems approach, and we live in a highly agricultural area, so, but yet a lot of our people don't have enough access to fresh food, so, it's trying to see the opportunities and the things that we can improve on. Community engagement's obviously going to be a really big part of this too, is just promoting the group, the mission, the vision, and trying to increase the community's involvement. And then this was the basis for us creating a strategic plan. So we created a 3-year strategic plan, and we just finished this up in the last month. So some of the things that we've laid out in our strategic plan is something called the Double Bucks program, trying to make that available, which is for people to purchase food, fresh food. People with lower incomes can apply to this program and receive, they're called bucks for purchasing at farmers markets, things like that. We also want to expand the Share the Bounty program. That's a program that already exists, but maybe not a lot of people are aware of, where you can drop off extra produce and then people can just go pick it up. It's free of charge. There's just, a good way for people to do something with their extra things in their garden that they're not using, and for people to have access. So there's several sites throughout the county, but we're hoping to try to increase that. The Fresh project is hoping to become a nonprofit organization, so that's something that they'll be working to take steps to do in the next 3 years. We've already looked at and applied for some additional grants and are looking at future funding to sort of move the project forward. Hosting information sessions, so if anyone belongs to any groups, we just spoke at the Rotary on Monday, so if there's any other groups that the Fresh project can come and talk to, sort of talk about our work and what's going on, that would be great. We're looking at creating a local directory, which sort of will tie together, the issues and opportunities for food availability throughout the county. And in looking more towards the end of our strategic plan, the end of those 3 years, we're also hoping to develop a mobile market and like remote distribution center, try to bring food to the areas that are food deserts that could really benefit from having food sort of brought to them. So this is a map that we're working on creating right now. You'll see in the purple, that is a food desert area. That's something that's defined by the USDA. Those are locations where poverty is greater than 20% and distance to a grocery store is more than 10 miles if you're in a rural area or a half mile in an urban area. So you can see the large portion kind of on the western side of Shawano County is a food desert. There's also an area in the city of Shawano that is also considered a food desert. Nearly 75% of Shawano County is rural, so that's certainly one of the issues there as far as access. So this tool that we're working with East Central Regional Planning Commission to, with their GIS program, to sort of create something. There'll be, besides showing the food desert areas, there'll also be layers that you can turn on and off that'll include grocery stores, and food pantries and other different areas for opportunities to access food, and it kind of paints sort of a picture of you know, where there's needs in the community as far as access. We're hoping that people will get involved, that, you know, they'll maybe want to volunteer with our group. Like I mentioned, hosting a presentation, just trying to learn more about food insecurity in the community, talking about supporting efforts to address food insecurity in the communities. Soon we'll have something on the website where people can make donations to the project, increasing, like I said, Share the Bounty and some other programs. People can get involved by, you know, volunteering at their food pantries and with other efforts too that are, you know, similar. Shopping at your local farmers markets, supporting local farmers, that sort of thing is all stuff that people can do that kind of will help the community out and help the Fresh Project move along. This is an image we created just kind of for the structure of the Fresh Project moving forward. We have the executive committee that sort of oversees the day-to-day operations, provides leadership. Currently, that's the 3 county agencies. There's Nick, myself, and then Nancy Schultz from UW Extension. We also have a community member from Shawano and a community member from the Stockbridge-Muncie tribe that are all on this sort of executive committee right now while we get things kind of up and moving into the next stage at least. Then there's the Food Council. That's a little larger group. Like Nick had mentioned, we have some local farmers, religious community. There's different folks involved with the Food Council. And that's sort of determining what specific projects and efforts the group will take on. There will eventually be some work groups that'll work on individual projects. So if there's a specific project somebody wants to get involved with, like the mobile, you know, farmers market, something like that, people can do that. And then also supportive partners, just like people that in their own jobs and in their organizations can do stuff to sort of be involved. And then the general public, that we're just hoping to keep everybody aware of what's going on and help sort of talk about the Fresh Project. I think everybody should have received a brochure and business card that has, that we just put together from the grants. So that's, tells you just a brief overview of the project. If somebody, there's a website on there, thefreshproject.org. We just got a website up and running, and so if anybody wants any more of those handouts, we have them in the UW Extension office or down in the planning department. So let us know, because we'll be happy to share those if, you know, you have someone that might be interested in the work we're doing and getting involved, or visiting the website so that you can find out more information. See, our strategic plan is on the website, and eventually, hopefully, we'll have that map up there, and people can kind of mess around with that and see what other things, you know, they can learn about the community and food access. I guess that's it. Any questions from anyone?
Are there any county board members that have a question? Marvin, you have a question?
I just would like to go back to your slide on the map of Shawano County. I don't see any identifications on it, so what do the stars and the blue houses, or the blue houses, the desert areas?
The purple sort of, let's see if I have a, This purple area here is the food desert area, and then in the city of Shawano, right here too, is also a food desert area. So one thing that's not on here, and what will be available on the website, there'll be a legend, and there'll be different things you can turn on and off. So there'll be grocery stores, gas stations, restaurants, different places where folks can get food, food pantries. So that's not on this particular map. I sort of just did an image of, you
What
know.
do the stars mean?
The stars, I believe, are food pantries.
Oh.
And I think the purple house-looking things are the grocery stores. And there'll be more information that will be on there, too.
That it, Marvin? Okay, thank you. Anybody else have a question of either Carrie or Nick? Okay, I see none, so Carrie, Nick, thank you very much. Okay, let's move forward. We have a motion to deviate and a second, so at this time I'm going to deviate to item 9 on our agenda. Pam, if you would, please, there are no other communications to the board, right? Okay.
To recognize Rick Grunwald for 27 years of service to Shawano County. Whereas Rick Grunwald commenced his employment with Shawano County Highway Department on February 5th, 1990, and whereas Rick began his service as a truck driver, transitioned to mechanic, and served as a shop foreman over the last 7 years, supporting the operations of the Highway Department and serving the public. And whereas Rick worked diligently to handle the broad responsibilities involved in the maintenance and repair of a large fleet of equipment and vehicles within the Highway Department, including troubleshooting, maintaining equipment and shop inventory, purchasing equipment, building plow trucks, supervising activities of other mechanics, and undertaking projects critical to improving the lives and safety of others in the community. And whereas Rick brought a wealth of knowledge and a strong work ethic to Shawano County on a daily basis. And whereas Rick Grunwald retired from the Shawano County Highway Department on March 3rd, 2017, and will be greatly missed by fellow employees and the residents of Shawano County. And whereas Shawano County wishes to acknowledge Rick's contributions and accomplishments during his employment with Shawano County, now therefore be it resolved by the Shawano County Board of Supervisors in session this 22nd day of March 2017, that the County of Shawano hereby extends official thanks and best wishes to Rick Grunwald for 27 years of dedicated service to Shawano County, submitted by the Highway and Parks Committee.
Can I have a motion to approve? Motion by John Ainsworth, seconded by Tom Kulza. At this time, I would ask that Grant Bristol come forward and bring up the retired gentleman. Rick, please. Of course, I hear Rick has been getting up earlier now that he's retired than before, so.
I just want to say a couple words about Rick. First off, I'd sure like to thank him for the 27 years of service. It's been a pleasure and privilege to work with Rick. Rick is a jack of all trades. When you look at the Highway Department, large fleet of equipment, wide variety of trucks to passenger vehicles to large equipment. Rick's knowledge was second to none there. He passed a lot of that knowledge down to the younger, some of the other staff there. Much appreciated. One little note I wanted to comment on is that I'm pretty proud of. It was all due to Rick, but Rick transitioned into the shop foreman position, and since then, the last 20 trucks, or dump trucks / plow trucks, have been built by crews within the Shawano County Highway Department. So, passed on a cost savings to Shawano County, as well as, the maintenance and knowledge to all the other mechanics that work for Rick. So, again, a pleasure to work with. Going to be missed by all, and Rick, I just want to say thank you and congratulations.
Yeah, come on, Rick. Rick, come on. Say a couple words. You want to speak? Okay. Thank you very much, Rick. Good people like that are what make Shawano County move. Not the fact that he's from the Highway Department, but Shawano County has a lot of good staffers, and Rick certainly exemplifies that. So, okay, let's, we got to vote on that. If you are in favor then of resolution number 11-17, you would vote A at this time. If you're opposed, you vote nay, please. 27 ayes, 0 nays, so resolution number 11-16 has been approved. Okay, let's move back to item 8 on our agenda. We have ordinance number 3-17. Please, Pam.
Approve amendments to the Shawano County Land Division Ordinance. Now therefore be it ordained by the Shawano County Board of Supervisors in session this 22nd day of March 2017 that it approves the revised and amended Shawano County Land Division Ordinance as recommended, submitted by the Planning, Development, and Zoning Committee.
Could I have a motion to approve this one? Motion by Ken Capelli, seconded by Steve Dietz. Comments or questions? Ken, would you care to comment, or we could get Bob up here too? It's up to you. Go ahead.
No, I can comment.
Okay, good, thank you.
This ordinance is a result of the PD and Z committee meeting 4 or 5 times with the surveyors in Shawano County, the Shawano County surveyor, and the Land Information Office. And this is a direct result of everybody is in agreement with this, and I would encourage passage of this today.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Anybody else, any other board member have a comment or a question? Deb Nofke, do you have a comment or question, please?
Yeah, I maybe would like to ask Bob to give just a brief synopsis of the changes, because I went and looked online, and it was kind of hard to figure out. Looks like it's clarification, but it would probably be helpful if you just
Okay.
gave
Bob?
a brief description.
Can you answer Deb's questions?
The amendments that are before you this morning are just to Section 7 of the ordinance, which is the minor subdivision or the certified survey map requirements and the review process. A couple of things that are important to note here is, as Ken had mentioned, we sent the amendments out to all of the surveyors in Shawano County that do work. We also sat down with one of the local surveyors that are here in Shawano County and discussed these revisions with them. None of them had any issues, concerns. They're all on board with this. The other important thing to remember is this is not costing the private property owner any additional dollars to have a survey done. Some of the things that have precipitated these revisions, and they're mostly language revisions to clarify some of the sections within Section 7. We've had an awful lot of plat of surveys done for lot line revisions, and right now, plats of surveys for lot line revisions are not required to come through the review process with Shawano County. Surveyors are taking the legal descriptions, putting them on deeds, and we're not getting accurate legal descriptions, and there are issues with the deeds. So basically what we're looking to do is for plats of surveys for lot line revisions or for the creation of lots for annexation purposes. There was a situation out in the town of Wittenberg that occurred. It's to make sure that the surveyor contacts the planning department for preliminary consultation before they go out there and do the survey. Then we're asking them to submit that plat of survey to the county for review. There's no fee for that, just to make sure that we've got a correct legal description before the legal descriptions are placed on a deed and then recorded. So this is basically cleanup, pretty benign amendments. There isn't anything that's going to cost the private property owner any additional funds. It's just, try and catch the issues ahead of time before they're put on deeds and the deeds are recorded.
Sounds pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Okay, Deb, is that it?
Yep, thank you,
Okay.
Bob.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Anybody else? Comment or question? Otherwise, if you are then in favor of ordinance number 3-17, you would vote A at this time. If you're opposed, once again, you vote nay, please. 27 ayes, 0 nays, so ordinance number 3-17 is also approved. Moving on to item 10 on our agenda, we have resolution number 12-17. Please, Pam.
To approve a memorandum of understanding with the Shawano County Historical Society Incorporated. Now therefore be it resolved by the Shawano County Board of Supervisors in session this 22nd day of March 2017 that it hereby approves the memorandum of understanding between Shawano County and the Shawano County Historical Society Incorporated, submitted by the Shawano County Highway and Parks Committee. And the County Board Chair and the County Clerk are hereby authorized to execute the agreement on behalf of Shawano County, submitted by the Highway and Parks Committee.
Could I have a motion to approve this. Motion by Tom Kautz, seconded by Randy Young. Comments or questions? I think I'm going to hand this over to Tony, because you worked on this, the majority of it, so if you would be so kind, please.
Sure. The memorandum of understanding has been attached. Hopefully you've had a chance to review it. I had an opportunity to visit with the Highway Committee on several occasions over the last few months to see if we could be successful in doing what we hadn't been able to do for many years, and that's come to an agreement with the Historical Society concerning the use of the property that is located just to our north and west, and who owns the dwellings, who has to maintain them, and who pays for utilities and insurance and all those sorts of things. As a result of roughly, 3, 4, 5 meetings, most of which the Historical Society was invited to, the Highway Committee and the Society ultimately came to the agreement that you have in front of you governing the historical structures out at Heritage Park. As you'll note, they have already approved it. They've already signed it. And they are not, I don't think anybody is here in the back, but I know that obviously they've approved it, and they would ask that you approve it as well, and it's a pretty good day for the county and the Historical Society to have an agreement finally.
It is. Any board members wishing to comment, have questions? Steve Burrows.
I just have a question here for utilities. It indicates that the county would pay up to $5,000 annually to cover those costs. Typically, do we know what the cost is?
Sure.
For a typical year?
And just as a little background, back in 2010 or 11, the Highway Committee passed kind of an internal guidance that we should follow, and that committed up to $4,000 for utilities. The average of the last 3 years has been about $3,200. We agreed on a $5,000 figure to give them a little leeway, but yet to cap it so that the county doesn't have an unlimited utility liability.
Okay, I can appreciate that. The only reason I ask is like 4-H hockey club and so on, when they do their leases with Crawford, are we paying the utilities for them?
No, the highway, for example, the lease of the Crawford Center, those folks are always paying for the utilities, and the committee is, acutely aware of that issue. There are some things that we donate to people in other situations. The statutes allow us, in this particular case, to donate some funds to the Historical Society, and that's what the committee suggests, and that's what the history, as it were, would be here between the two parties. So they thought it was a pretty good negotiation.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the OU at all. It's just that I think that there should be a little bit more equity between some of the other nonprofits and their, what they get as gifts or whatever, as opposed to just the Historical Society.
That was certainly...
I'm not trying to pick out just one group over another. It's just an observation.
Certainly, and it wasn't a point lost on the committee at all, and they had significant discussions on that issue and thought that what you had before you was a good resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see, Tom Kautz, you have a comment on this?
I was just going to comment that this is maybe a little more generous than what offers we have made with other organizations and nonprofits, but in the past, it's always been that the county set that aside and let the Historical Society use it over there, and basically in the past, there was kind of an open checkbook. And the county never did have any type of agreement, and this maybe isn't perfect, but we feel it's a good start, and it's mutually agreeable to everybody, and there's a little something to be said that you do have to remember the past a little bit too, and we did reach an agreement with them yesterday. They have already signed it, and it would be for cleaning up the property that had the fire damage. And that agreement, basically, the insurance company is going to give us roughly $59,000, and the Historical Society is going to donate all their time and their work to take care of what's there and get it cleaned up and get it going. And if there's any funding left from that insurance check, then that money would be set aside to be used for future things on the site for them.
I think you did a good job working out this MOU, and Tony, to me, at least it's a start, and sometimes you have to start with something. It may not be perfect, but you'll go from there, so. Let's see, Bob Crow, you have a comment or a question, please?
Well, that kind of leads into my question. Going from there, I see under page 5C, under number 7, modifications to the agreement. So if there's disagreement, that's pretty vague as to how we're going to resolve that disagreement. It says any amendments or changes are going to be, must be made in writing and signed by both parties. If this isn't working out, how do we make the changes? Is that going to be, I mean, that sounds kind of open-ended on...
That's a standard provision that you'll find in just about 99% of the contracts that people enter into, Bob. It is vague, but it's intentionally vague, and all it means is that its primary purpose is if somebody says, well, no, I know the agreement says X, but you said Y, the agreement binds, and you have to come together and agree on any disagreements to resolve them in writing, signed by both parties, so oral agreements don't count. We think this will be a good working agreement. However, if in the future problems arise, they will bring them back to the Highway Committee. The Highway Committee will try to work out an amendment to this agreement. It will go through the same process by which this overall county board would have to ultimately approve any revision.
Okay, because it is different in the leases that we have. The leases, we have an arbitration clause and how we come to arbitrating the agreement. And the other big thing is there's a time limit on our leases. You know, they're 5-year, 10-year, whatever they are. This is just a memorandum of understanding. I know it's much lesser of a lease, I should say, but it does leave it to where, okay, we have an understanding, and it's going to be continual until somebody doesn't understand it.
Well, two things. What you were talking about is a dispute resolution provision. This type of MOU, you don't really need a dispute resolution because we know that any differences, to the extent there are unlikely differences that require litigation, are going to be venued here in Shawano County because the parties are indigenous only to Shawano County. Second of all, there is a provision in Section 5 in the last sentence which talks about that if the county board 10 years from now, 20 years from now, next month, whatever, decides that this is an agreement you want to engage in any further, you can terminate it by a 75% vote of the membership. So it does run without a definitive term unless, of course, the board changes its mind, and we reserve the right to let the board do that.
Oh, that never happens.
Bob?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Dennis Knack, you have a comment or a question, please?
I just wondered, since it's already been signed by you, does it, or vote have any impact? I said, since it's already been signed by you and Pam, does...
It counts. If this board wants to move forward, the board will certainly support it.
Okay.
Yeah, the board needs to approve it. I think the signatures were in anticipation of the approval.
Pretty much so, like it's called a slam dunk.
I learned not to count my chickens.
Gene Hoppy, do you have a comment or a question?
Yes, I want to thank you for, this is a great MOU. I think this is long overdue, and the fact is that this gives the Heritage Society and a clear path to go ahead, so they know what they can do and what they can't do. And I think you did a great job in drawing this up, and I give the Parks Committee kudos also, because this is long overdue, and I'm glad to see it done.
Yeah, I think if I made the praise should go to the Highway Committee, because sometimes the staff doesn't always agree with the Historical Society, but the committee really did a nice job of making their will known and directly supporting the staff and made our jobs a lot easier.
Yes, they did.
There, Gene?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. John Ainsworth, you have a comment?
Just a quick comment that the negotiations have become much easier than they were in the past. And when you really try to cooperate, when both sides try to cooperate, sure, there's little details that may not be perfect for everybody, but it really has smoothed out the path a lot recently, and I'd just like to commend all the folks that worked on this. I kind of got in the middle of the fires, what got it started, but I think it's come to a good conclusion.
Yeah.
We didn't have any agreement, really.
Before.
Now we have something to work on.
Yeah, it's called communication. You have to, even when you have two sides communicating, you can accomplish a lot, but when it's only one side, you might as well forget it. Let's see, back to Tom Koza.
Well, just one more comment too, is that in the past, there really wasn't any contact, hardly, or communication, to where we did add that we would like to see the Historical Society come to the Highway and Parks Committee, say like on a semi-annual basis, just so there's a little discussion, so we have a little idea of what they're planning, what they're doing, and what's happening inside the buildings. So if, like here, what was thought to be a dehumidifier, which started everything, our maintenance department and parks, nobody had no idea that there was even any such a thing in there, to where this way there's a little more communication then too.
Sure, good deal. Anybody else, comment or question on resolution number 12-17? Deb Nofke.
I'd like to also thank the Highway Committee and the society members, because this really is one of the jewels of the county park system. You have unique structures. They're actually very well maintained. If anybody's been in that church, it's just awesome. We need a lot of kudos to both the society members and the Highway Committee for being able to come up with something like this.
Okay, thank you, Deb. Anybody else at this time? Okay, I see none. If you are then in favor of resolution number 12-17, you would vote A at this time. If you're opposed, you vote nay, please. A, 0 nays, so resolution number 12-17 is adopted. Moving on to item 11 on our agenda, we have resolution number 13-17. Please, Pam.
To request closure of commercial property assessment loopholes. Now therefore be it resolved by the Shawano County Board of Supervisors in session this 22nd day of March, 2017, that it does hereby urge the governor and state legislature to protect homeowners and Main Street businesses from having more of the property tax burden shifted to them by passing legislation providing that, 1, leases are appropriately factored into the valuation of leased properties, and 2, when using the comparable sale method of valuation, assessors shall consider as comparable only those sales within the same market segment exhibiting a similar highest and best use rather than similarly sized but vacant or abandoned properties. And 3, other action necessary is taken to prohibit the further shifting of the tax burden away from large chain stores and placing it on homeowners and small local business owners. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution shall be forwarded by the county clerk to the governor's office and state legislative offices, submitted by the administrative committee and the finance committee.
Is there a motion to approve this resolution? Motion by John Zwizik, seconded by, Amy Zeinert. Comments or questions, please? Mr. Miller all gave us a brochure on this last month. If you've had time to read it or investigate it, this would certainly be, at least, it's an advisory resolution, but it's certainly something I think that's necessary. John Ainsworth, comment or question, please?
Yeah, a couple of questions, or maybe one question with several parts. Are there any legal definitions for national chain stores, thriving locations, big box stores, Main Street stores, or are we just picking terms that we like to hear?
I'll refer that to the gentleman on the table.
This, John, was actually referred based on the stores, whether it's Walgreens or Kmart, Walmart, Target, stores like that are actually using it, the provision right now. And this resolution was provided by the Wisconsin Counties Association to all 72 counties to do a similar resolution to follow through. I think we just took their resolution drafted by the Counties Association.
So we don't really have a definition when all these builds on, as they appear to be doing, do they become a big box or are they still a little box?
In answer to your question about the statutory definitions, you won't find a big box store in the statutes or national chain, any of that verbiage, but what you will find is square footage requirements, anticipated sales, and other ways of defining those stores that fit into given categories, and you compare stores within those categories. What the real purpose of this is to, in essence, limit those comparisons to active stores rather than the way the statute reads now is property. So whether or not that property is vacant or not, you can still include it. It should be active businesses, and it's a pretty easy fix in the statutes, but action has to be taken.
And with this said, we have hundreds, probably thousands of empty barns around the countryside. And then we have Milk Source, I think if Bob can agree with me, is probably the biggest source of milk in the state. Would they be considered a chain, or are the empty barns assessed at a lower rate?
That's a completely different business in a completely different category. And again, this is just for assessing value, an assessed value for property taxes. You wouldn't find that a commercial store would be in the same category as a barn, as a dairy farm, as any of those other things that you talked about. If you're evaluating a barn, you're going to compare it to other barns. If you're going to evaluate a chain store, so to speak, you should compare it to other chain stores. Unfortunately, there's a loophole which says that those chain stores don't necessarily have to be active. So that's what we need to clear up.
So Ponderosa here in Shawano is part of a chain, but what do they call it?
Forget about the chain. That's just kind of a red herring. I know that's...
I mean, that's in the...
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a chain store, but the chain stores have been networking so that all the CVS's, all the Walgreens nationwide, one found out they could do this, and now the other is, and the other is, and the other is. But it doesn't have to be a chain store. It could be a mom-and-pop store restaurant, for example, like Ponderosa, who's going to come along and say, we're going to compare ourselves not to Anello's and the Washington Inn and Luigi's. We're going to compare ourselves to the old Ponderosa, even though it's vacant, and they're going to look at those sales and the value of that property, even though it's been vacant, which would have the impact of artificially lowering the value of the new store. The whole idea of this statute is to say, no, you don't compare yourselves to the vacant ones like Ponderosa, you compare yourselves to Anello's and Luigi's and the other ones, because that's what you intend and aspire to be like.
So it's not necessarily just the value of the property, it's the value of the business conducted in the property.
Exactly.
And that's property tax?
Well, that's what the assessed value is, and that's what part of the equation is to determine that assessed value.
So if a particular business does a better job of selling things, are they assessed higher?
No, can I jump into it? Case in point, over in Howard, Swamico, the Menard store over there has been reassessed from approximately $25 million down to $5 million, so they're only paying tax on that based on being compared to other vacant empty stores that are comparable size. So now that tax base going from $25 million to $5 million is significantly less.
But the answer to your question, John, is yes. The better you've done, the higher the value in that community is for that type of store, and that's what you get compared to.
Better, John?
To me, it seems like it's a very obscure resolution. And in the end, the business does not pay the tax. The consumer pays the tax. When their costs go up, their prices are going up. And that's why people go to some of those stores compared to others, because they can buy things cheaper. We're going to sacrifice some of that.
Okay, thank you, John. Marvin Klosterman, comment on this, please?
I just have a question regarding the last sentence in your administrative note. Any costs that could be added that might, if it will go to court. Whether we pass this resolution or not, are we still going to be responsible if it goes to court?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, moving forward, Arlen Tober, please.
Yes, I think, Jerry, you may be correct me if I'm wrong or not, but these stores like in Michigan is where it's really taken place because the courts have been overruling their laws. But local governments and school districts and that, just in Michigan alone, was over $100 million that they got to pay back now. And it's just tremendous amount of money, and I don't know how these small townships and all that can afford to pay that back.
Right, and you have to remember, this is just an advisory resolution we would like to send down to Madison, and I'm sure everyone in here that owns property would like to have their assessed value at a quarter of what you're paying today. So, but we need taxes too. So, let's see, moving forward, Deb Nofke, do you have a comment on this resolution?
Yeah, John Ainsworth's right. When you start looking at how do you define, I'm talking about dairy barns, that farm is just as much a business as any Walmart.
Depends on if it's a working farm or whatever. There's use value there that farmers receive.
Right. And when you look at the way this is worded, we're all thinking, ooh, chain stores. Well, would that include things like McDonald's? Why, that's national. Domino's? That's national. But in this community, those are franchise operators. That's just as much a little guy that's stuck paying their franchisor first. Maybe we should really be looking at sometimes the business community is assessed a little too high. I'm not sure you should only look at only the highest and best use of the property. You couldn't compare an empty lot with a completed building.
True, that's not a good comparison.
I just wonder if this is one of those that might inadvertently nail the little guy as well. And we got enough problems for the little guy.
Well, the little guy's got enough problems, but you showed me a little guy that owns a Menards or owns a CVS, or I don't think you'd see him in this room. So, is that it, Deb?
Qualheim's?
Qualheim's family owned, not a chain, or whatever.
It's local. Torberg's? Local?
Those are local, Deb. We're talking about those that are more, have
True Value's a national chain. It's just they're franchise operators. Therein is the danger in this kind of sweeping them all into the same category.
But once again, this is just an advisory resolution. We can sit here and discuss this for the next hour if you want, but it's still an advisory resolution. And if we send it down to Madison, are they going to have the discussion that we're having here today? I'd kind of doubt it. But anyway, that's just me. Let's move forward. Bob Krause, you're up next.
Yeah, a couple of things that were brought up today that I can maybe shed some light on. First of all, my recommendation for those of you who are really concerned about who this affects is talk to our property lister or to your assessor. All properties are, and the top title of this resolution is Commercial Property Assessment Loopholes. And that's what we're doing, is just trying to adjust these loopholes. And they don't apply to every commercial property. Talking about farms. Farms, depending upon how they are designed and how they are operated, are whether they're commercial, industrial, or family-run farm. I mean, these are all titles, the same titles that you're dealing with your Qualheims or your McDonald's. They're all operated differently, they're all assessed differently. There's loopholes in here, like let's say for your typical farm property. If you find out down the road that your woods was assessed wrong than what it should have actually been assessed, you're responsible for that. The state does not pay you back. Okay, so now we have a loophole in here saying, oh, I found out my commercial property is assessed incorrectly, I get my money back. Well, that's a loophole we need to correct. I mean, because if not every commercial property can do that, then why is that commercial property allowed to do that? So we're just asking, again, it's an advisory to put everybody on the same playing field. Let's close some of these loopholes that we've discovered so that we can make this work more fairly. So yes, farms are a different kind of cat. I'm a person that went from having a dairy operation. When my farm was no longer a dairy operation, I had it reassessed. And what happens here is as these big box stores close, they come and they want to be reassessed because it's an empty building. The unfortunate part is they can come back at back taxes. And that's kind of a loophole we need to fix, because how do we generate and operate when we don't know that? So it's just asking our state legislature to look at it and try to amend these loopholes. So we can discuss it all day, as Jerry said. It's really not going to change what's happening. And the verbiage in here is just giving them a whereas, here are some of the problems we see. Can you look at it and close the loopholes? It's not really that big of deal. You've brought up a lot of good points, a lot of good questions that can better answered by your assessor for your town, or go downstairs, talk to the property lister, and they can shed a little better light than what we can kind of guessing on our personal experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Roger Miller, comment or question? Good to see you back here, Roger.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate all the well wishes that I had while I was still recovering yet. Can't drink beer yet. They said no. So that's one problem I'm having with this.
Hang in there, guy.
I know it. Anyway, take a look at this too. I got to throw the casino into the mix here because one, it's a commercial operation, multi-million-dollar operation. When you look at a casino and you're making determinations, what type of commercial property is that? That's where my concern comes in because I do not know the definition if it's going to fit this as a commercial property, casino / farm / whatever. Anyway, my concern is the definitions that are listed out there. I know this is a small start to take a look at the whole situation, and I know this is just a looky-see. Hey, what are we doing here and that? And so this is more as my assumption is that this is more as an advisory type of memorandum or is this considered like a memorandum of understanding, or are we agreeing to something that it's going to cost some bucks down the road for casinos, I think.
Well,
that's my thought.
With this resolution, I think we're just telling our state legislators, hey, look at this. This isn't fair and equitable to everybody, and it's started in Michigan, like Arlen said, and it's going to go further. But we're asking our legislators to look at it. We should be able to ask that much of them. So, okay, back to John Ainsworth. John, another question?
Yes, no, not a question, just a couple of comments. Use value was mentioned, does not apply to buildings at all. That's strictly bare land where you need basically no police or fire protection. Use value does not apply to farm buildings. Just the land, just the bare land.
Okay.
The other point is, we talked about the owners, and I think Menards was mentioned. It doesn't matter which store was mentioned. Anybody who has a retirement fund or mutual funds or something like that, you are an owner of almost every type of business in the country.
Well, money's been invested all over, so you never know what you own. Let's see, moving forward. Tom Kautza, you have a comment, please?
Well, just a comment. I think we're kind of getting off track. This is only a little advisory resolution that we're sending to the state to ask them to look at things and get them corrected. And for some of the board members here that are worried about the little guy, you got to consider the big picture. A lot of these stores, when they were built, the infrastructure was put in through TIF districts. And then TIF districts all account for taxes from schools and cities and everything else. If that money has to be paid back, who's going to pay that back? The little guy, the taxpayer, because the city is still going to be responsible for them bonds that they issued. Who's going to lose if their bonds go default on some of these redevelopment authorities because of funding some of these various projects? Who's going to lose? The little guy who buys a municipal bond. It's just trying to make them accountable for what they agreed to in the beginning, and that they got to pay their own way.
Okay.
Time to vote.
Thank you, Tom. Anybody else? Comment or question, please, on this resolution number 13-17? I see none. So, if you are then in favor of resolution number 13-17, you would vote A at this time. If you're opposed, you vote nay, please. 25A, 2 nays, so resolution number 13-17 is adopted. Moving on to item number 12 on our agenda, we have resolution number 14-17. Please, Pam.
to approve contract with Carlson Detman Consulting for library employees. Now therefore be it resolved by the Shawano County Board of Supervisors in session this 22nd day of March 2017 that it approves utilizing the services of Carlson Detman Consulting LLC for the procurement of the wage study analysis pertaining to the new library system employees and overall plan market update at a cost not to exceed $10,500 to be taken from the general fund. Be it further resolved that the county board chairperson and county clerk or their designee are authorized to execute the contract noted herein consistent with the terms noted herein. Submitted by the Administrative Committee and Finance Committee.
Is there a motion to approve this resolution? Motion by Kathy Lipke, seconded by Bill Swatawa. Comments or questions, please? This came about because if Shawano County takes over the library system, these will become library employees. They were not originally figured into the Carlson Detman study, so now they will be figured into it. Mr. Miller, anything to say? Nope, good deal. Let's see, Randy Young, comment or question on this, please?
Just a quick question. Twice in the resolution, it says not to exceed, excuse me, $10,500. In your administrative fiscal note, are we actually going to move the 10.5, or are we going to wait to see what it actually costs before we move the money? Or is it 10.5?
It'll be 10.5, well, it's $10,000 for the contract and $500 for the incidentals, mileage, meals, stuff like that, and it's just not to exceed that amount, correct, Tony?
Yeah, the 10,000 is fixed, Randy, so that's going to be paid, and then they wanted some endless number for, if we got to drive up here and stay at a hotel. I said, you can have some expenses, but we're going to cap that at nothing more than 500. So it'll be between 10,000 and 10,500. Okay, I didn't realize the 10,000 was fixed. I thought maybe it ended up being like 9,000, so why remove the 10.5, but thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Let's see. Deb Nofke, do you have a comment or a question, please?
Yes.
Yes?
When we first did the Carlson Detman study, the library employees were excluded, and I know that that was quite a question at the time, and I'm not sure why they were ever excluded to begin with. This is probably overdue. We should have had them done and classified way back when.
But at the time, they weren't county staff, which made the difference, and I think that's probably why Barb and Charlie did not want to include them.
The city-county branch was. Those are county employees.
I think she had us all at, it's now time to do it in any event. Right?
You are so correct. Bonnie Olson, please.
I guess, I know $500 is minimal, but I mean, if they're doing their analysis for the 10,000, I don't understand why we're paying their expenses too.
That's something that's incurred when you hire somebody expensive.
It wasn't what we did in the original study.
Yes, I'm sure it was.
Yes,
I'm sure it had to have been.
No.
Very similar to this, and I think the bottom line is if we don't do the 10.5 for the 10,000 plus the expenses, they're going to say, well, we just had a price increase for the overall service, it's now 10,500. Because it's a pretty reasonable deal to begin with, and that's what we kind of look at as the bottom line.
Okay, anybody else have a question regarding resolution number 14-17? Arlen Tober, you have a question?
Yes, I just have a comment and a question. First of all, I agree with the resolution, but I was just wondering about how it's coming with the switchover. And if you have any idea, do the buildings, all the buildings, do they stay with the local municipality, or hasn't that been done yet?
Short answer is I'm going to let Kathy Lipke speak for just a little bit on that.
Okay, April 1st is the deadline for the municipalities to come on board, which we have we have 5 so far. After we know who's on board, then we're going to start looking into the lease. So everything is all up in the air right now. We have a timeline and we're following it.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Anybody have a question on the original resolution? I see none. So if you will then be in favor of resolution number 14-17, you would vote A, please. If you're opposed, you vote nay. (27A, 0 nay). So, excuse me, resolution number 14-17 is approved. Moving on to item 13 on our agenda, we have resolution number 15-17. Please, Pam.
Regarding the Building Maintenance Department 1% carryover, now therefore be it resolved by the Shawano County Board of Supervisors in session this 22nd day of March 2017 that the Building Maintenance Department's current and future 1% carry forward funds be placed in a leased vehicle account for the rental of departmental vehicles for county business as contemplated by resolution number 8-17. Be it further resolved that proceeds from the sales of existing and future departmental vehicles will also be deposited into the leased vehicle account, submitted by the Public Property and Finance Committee.
Is there a motion to approve this resolution? Motion by Amy Zeinert, seconded by Bob Kraus. Comments or questions on this, anybody? I had a discussion with Steve on this because he is forever giving up his 1%, but then he said he didn't hardly use it anyway, but it will go towards leased vehicles. So he's fully aware that he's saying goodbye to his 1% and it will go towards the lease of vehicles for public maintenance. Anybody else question or whatever? Okay, seeing none. If you are in favor of resolution number 15-17, you would vote A. If you're opposed, you vote nay, please. (27A, 0 nay), so that resolution has been adopted. Moving on to item 14 on our agenda, we have resolution number 16-17. Please, Pam.
Regarding carryover funds for the Planning and Development Department. Now therefore be it resolved by the Shawano County Board of Supervisors in session this 22nd day of March 2017 that up to $4,665.96 be carried forward from the department's 2016 budget to be placed in cost center account 69041 for the rental of a departmental vehicle for county business in 2017 as contemplated by resolution number 8-17 submitted by the Planning, Development, and Zoning Committee and Finance Committee.
Is there a motion to approve this? Motion by Ken Capelli, seconded by Gene Hoppy. Comments or questions? Anybody? Pretty straightforward. I see none. So if you are in favor then of resolution number 16-17, you would vote A. If you're opposed, once again, you vote nay, please. Morning, Sheriff. Morning, George. 27A, 0 nays, so resolution number 16-17 has been adopted. Item 15 on our agenda, we have resolution number 17-17. Please, Pam.
Approve a zone change for Thomas Roderkus. Now therefore be it resolved by the Shawano County Board of Supervisors in session this 22nd day of March 2017 that it approves the zone change as follows. ZC 1-17, Thomas Roderkus requests a zone change from farmland and preservation, excuse me, to agricultural residential on 2 parcels of land in the town of Washington, submitted by the Planning, Development, and Zoning Committee.
Could I have a motion to approve this resolution? Motion by Ken Capelli, seconded by Mark Bolin. Comments or questions on this? Anybody? Kathy Lipke.
But one question, the resolution talks about 2 parcels, but the map shows 3 parcels. It says 3, but they only show 2. Is that just a typo?
Bob Jacobson, could you answer that question for us, please?
Yeah, because one says 3 here. Yeah.
Kathy, could you repeat that for Bob,
On the
please?
resolution, it says 2 parcels, right? Yeah, on top of that, but the map shows a 3 parcel.
Right. What they have out there, Tom has a existing 2-acre parcel that his principal dwelling is on. There's also south and west of that, there's an existing 1-acre parcel. Immediately to the east of that, they're going to create another 1-acre parcel. And in essence, they're going to make two-acre parcels in that little area.
Okay. It just was, when I
Yeah, it
one
was-
says 2 and one says 3, it was kind
Yeah.
of, okay, I understand.
Okay.
Is that cropland they're taking out, or wooded, or?
It's basically vacant land
Vacant
that's
land.
not being used for cropland. It's,
Okay.
yeah. They're gonna build another non-farm residence on it.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Anybody else have any other question on the resolution number 17-17 at this time, please? I see none. So if you are in favor of resolution number 17-17, you would vote A. If you're opposed, you vote nay, please. 27 ayes, 0 nays, so resolution number 17-17 has also been approved. Item 16 on our agenda today, we have annual reports, and this month you have City County Library annual report in there. If you have any questions, please contact Christie. So that takes us to item 17 on our agenda, is report by the Finance Committee on general accounts and claims for today. Pam, please.
General accounts paid February 7th, 2017 through March 6th, 2017 in the amount of $382,559.32.
Is there a motion to approve paying general accounts? Motion by John Zwizik. Is there a second? Seconded by Bill Burkon. Comments or questions, anybody? Dennis, you have a comment or a question on general accounts?
Yes, I mentioned the tech services to Brent, and he's going to look into it. But there are a lot of tech service charges every month. In the past 6 months, we paid over $400,000. And I just wondered if any of it can be handled by our tech department, or if it's lumped into a category of tech services.
Some of these charges may well be...
required or something,
Yeah,
I understand.
but Brent,
I'll have the answer for him next month, because I know some of them are specific to the jail, some of them are specific to human services, and some of them are just the general oversight of the county.
are some of these just general charges what you have to pay for that type of software that are coming due?
I don't know it off the top of my head, but I will find out for next month and I'll report back.
Okay. And the other question was, a couple of months ago, when we talked about the libraries, and I had asked if anybody had ever negotiated with them on what our fee was going to be, and I see the amounts that are in there for around $120,000. Is this the best price we could get, or did we negotiate?
We can't negotiate, it's set up by the state statute. We are authorized to pay 70% of what they bill us for, or of the total usage, and the rates that they determine are set by those libraries. And this is paying for a year ago, Dennis, so these are past bills. We will be paying for 2016 in March of next year.
No, my question was, some are charging more, some are charging less.
Yeah,
And they can control what they're charging us.
Right, they can, and we have to pay.
But I mean, we can talk to them about...
Well, they're filling their coffers with our money, is what
that's
they're
the
doing.
point, yeah.
Is that it, Dennis?
Yes.
Okay. Brent will get more answers later, right, regarding the IT charges? Okay, thank you. Randy Young, you have a comment or question on general accounts?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, the squad equipment and installation for the sheriff's department, who is Tyler Albertson? Does he work for a company or something like that? Is he an independent? Or do you want to get back to me on that? If I'd have seen this earlier, I would have...
Ask the sheriff and the chief deputy are sitting in the back of the room, I don't know who that is.
He works for SMU?
He does this on the side.
Okay,
The person
okay,
we used to have doing it no longer does it.
okay, thank you, George. So this is an individual that's doing this on the side, installing this stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Anybody else, comments or question on our general accounts for today? I see none, so if you are in favor of paying general accounts, you would vote A. If you're opposed, you vote nay, please. (27A, 0 nay), so paying general accounts has been approved. We're on to item 18 on our agenda, and that's approval of the committee minutes as submitted. Is there a motion to approve the committee minutes? Motion by Steve Burrow, seconded by Milt Markler. Comments or questions, please, on the committee minutes as submitted? I see none, so let's do this then by acclamation. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carried. Item 19, special orders or appointments. This month we have Solid Waste Board. We have to reappoint Mike Schuler from the Wisconsin Towns Association, John Stasinski, who is a member at large for a 3-year term expiring March 2020. Also, we're going to, I'm asking you to appoint Randy Young to fill the remainder of Fred Ponchek's term expiring March 2018, and appoint Marvin Klosterman to fill an additional county board rep position term that will expire March of 2020. So motion to approve these appointments. Motion by Ray Phelan, seconded by John Zwizik. Comments or questions? By acclamation, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carried. We also have the Nicolay Federation Library Board. We have to reappoint Marcia Hafes for a 3-year term to expire December 31st, 2019. Could I have a motion to approve this appointment? Motion by Steve Geet, seconded by Deb Nofke. Comments or questions on this appointment, anybody? I see none. By acclamation, all in favor say aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carried. Brings us down to item 20, board member comment or new business to be considered at a future board meeting. Anybody have anything? Let's see. Tom Kotza.
I was just going to make a quick comment to thank the rest of the board for passing the agreement with the Historical Society. It was an interesting process to get to today's point. And now and then things come to the floor here and they get picked apart. And it was nice to see this one, even though it only came from one committee, that it went through without a ton of questions. Thank you.
You did a good job between your committee and Tony Cordes. I think now we have something to work off from. So thank you, Tom. Let's see, Bob Krause, you have anything for a future board meeting?
Just, not so much future board meeting, just an update on the extension reorganization. The day you had up in Kashina with the Legislative Exchange, we had a regional meeting down in Wisconsin Rapids. So I had an opportunity to meet with the dean and et cetera. Things are on the move. For those who don't know, there's a map out there splitting the state kind of along Highway 29 and then down Highway 10 to a north and south. There's going to be, matter of fact, they just closed the hiring period for a north and south regional associate dean for each area, and then the 23 area managers that's going to be coming up here, the hiring of those 23. Those are the folks that are going to negotiate with the counties as to what we need in our offices, and so our office is talking about putting together some visioning sessions with our community leaders as what do we expect from extension. And so once we get these area coordinators in position, we're going to look at facilitating a meeting here, or maybe with our complete area that we're hooked up, which is Oconto County and Marinette County. Some of the things are all in the works. So even though you may not see anything flashy going on, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. So finally, we're moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Anybody else? I see none, so let's move forward to item 21 on our agenda. Please, Pam.
Claim report for the Board of Supervisors meeting today with 27 members present, a total of $2,456.23.
Is there a motion to approve mileage and per diems for today? Motion by Ray Phelan, seconded by Tom Kotza. Comments or questions on mileage and per diems for today? Want to get paid? If you are in favor of paying mileage and per diem, you would vote A. If you're opposed, you vote nay, please. Somebody didn't want to get, there we go. 27A, 0 nay, so paying mileage and per diems has been approved. That takes us down to item 22. Our next meeting is Tuesday, April 18th. That's early because it's always early because of state statutes. We have to meet so many days after that first Monday. And that's our last 9 o'clock meeting of this year. So, till next fall. Till next fall. Then we start at 6 o'clock. So with that, item 23, a motion to adjourn. Adjourn would be in order. Motion by John Zwizik, seconded by Gene Hoppy. By acclamation, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, we got out earlier, Pam.